24/7 live stream news environment, how important is it for movements to do that, and what are some strategies they could use?
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, what we're seeing here are, some of the most effective people who have understood the power of communication, the power of the technologies of communication, like that. As a reporter watching you and your friends go, I've got to get my camera. Whatever the danger is, whatever we're about to get ourselves in trouble about, because let's not forget that when they go out in the streets with a camera, they're immediately heightening the risk to themselves and their own livelihoods, or lives, I beg your pardon. That's, what we're seeing is sort of what has emerged to make an impact. What we're not seeing, which is frustrating to me as someone who cares about this moment and also as a reporter, is how many movements around the world have people just as committed, just as brave, with missions that are just as important, who are not able to make a dent, as you say, mentioning Syria as an example. So just very, very briefly, what I think, just big picture, what's happening right now is this is the conflict for the next decade at least. People who hold power are centralizing their power more and more. A weird thing for me, sitting in my position, is that I'm seeing laws against this kind of assembly, this kind of activism that are identical, being pushed through by special interests all over the world, in Israel, in Australia, in emerging democracies, in established democracies. And what we're also seeing is that there's a global consciousness of people that transcends ethnicity, transcends nationality, transcends religion, that's also emerging. So when people in Tahrir Square send a message of support to people in Wisconsin, that's representing, it gives me chills, because that's representing a new thing in the world, which is this recognition that it's a global family. Most people just want to, live in peace and raise their families and, contribute to the world, and that the gatekeepers want to keep us at each other's throats. So that said, filmmaking and journalism hasn't caught up with what has to be the new reality, meaning everyone around the world now has to learn how to be a reporter. Everyone in the world has to learn how to double source things. Everyone in the world has to learn how to be a publicist and get their message out. Everyone in the world has to learn how to be a lobbyist, like you and your friends did. And everyone in the world ideally has to learn to be a documentarian. And, I have notes about concretely, what people need to do better.
Share them.
Well, I don't want to sort of be depressing, but it's actually quite, it's very basic. It's not rocket science. A huge frustration for me with the left, say with Occupy, is that if you're going to be in the media stream, reporters and editors need certain things, as you know. And so if you're I remember trying to get some media attention for Occupy, and it was maddeningly difficult because they don't believe in spokespeople. So I'm like, I don't care if you have 1 million spokespeople. Send me 10 of them. Send me 100. I don't care. Do your process, but get someone who can show up and answer questions. Because the media was saying, what do these people stand for? And if you don't have someone showing up and saying, well, this is some of what we stand for, you don't have a story, or the story gets spun by all the people, believe me, the people who are you're fighting against, and you're fighting against, and you're fighting against, they have their think tanks that they funded, they have their op-eds that are streaming into the news editors' faxes and emails every day. They are feeding the beast every day, and you guys need to learn how to feed the beast. Get your spokespeople, train them. There's this disdain for media communications. But really, to be a good communicator, why are you able now to have the impact you're able to have? Because you learned how to speak in sound bites, how to tell individual stories, not to generalize, how to, get the children standing there with signs saying, don't touch me. That's, the news media needs photographs, they need visuals. Why is your movement so effective? Partly because you had a lot of highly educated corporate guys who were part of the movement, who knew what it means to message in a mainstream way. So you had a logo, silence equals death. You had a soundbite. You had colors. You had, spokespeople streaming out into the news. And that, if you look at, what Cara said opening this panel is really true. If you study closing societies, they do the same 10 things. I've written about that. But if you study opening societies, successful revolutions, they do some of the same things, and nothing can stop a mass movement if people are doing certain things correctly. So communications is one of them. And finally, you have to be willing to write a press release and you have to also be willing to know that you're engaged in a news cycle. And so in a way, I guess the last thing I want to say here at Sundance is, it's also frustrating to me as a reporter that the news cycle for documentaries, the pacing, hasn't caught up with the role that documentaries need to play in the news stream, which is documentaries have to be part of the news media rather than part of the cinema industry. And that means a news cycle that's 24 hours, and it means people being willing to, stream it out there, make it cheaper, make it faster, go out there in real time, not a year later or 2 years later, to show up and stand there with the message that their documentary provides. And I would also like to see around the world these skills of becoming a documentarian being taught online to everybody as these global movements emerge. So
I want to take the last part of what you said and sort of pitch it over to Omar, because you made this documentary, I think, relatively quickly. It was a year ago that you shot this footage, and now it's premiering at Sundance. But it's still not on the sort of cycle that I think maybe Naomi is talking about. Did you stream any of this right away on YouTube? Did you think about that? And for you, what are the costs and benefits of doing a film like this in a cinematic context instead of a sort of social media context, let's say?
Of course, I think in the beginning this was maybe also our idea, that we want to go and document it and maybe get it out there as quick as possible, our material. And we also got some offers to do that. But I think as the days went by, we became much more aware that what we had was something more unique than just news material. And we wanted to tell a personal story, which wasn't, we're not journalists, and we don't have the objective side on the situation as journalists. We were caught in the middle, and it's a very subjective movie. And I think it's like some kind of combination, what I believe, and from what you're saying, I think it's very important to get some things out there as quickly as possible, and they also are, but I also think to be a part of the cinematic, the cinema life with a movie like this is very important to us, because it's very important to make people really feel in a different way, because it's a different experience when you watch a movie in the cinema or you just watch some news on television or some clips on YouTube. And if you want to change people's mind with a way of thinking, you need to seduce them, and you do that by cinema.
I want to also, pivot something that you were saying, Naomi, because in some ways the sort of appeal or the call